The debate surrounding biological reality and gender identity in sports has become one of the most controversial and emotionally charged topics in recent years. At its core, this issue questions the balance between inclusion and fairness, between personal identity and objective physical differences. For many, including outspoken figures like Piers Morgan, the central concern is whether allowing transgender women, who were born biologically male, to compete in female sports undermines the integrity of women's competition. While society continues to evolve in its understanding and acceptance of gender identity, sport is an area where physicality and biology play an undeniable role, and ignoring this could have significant consequences for fairness, safety, and the future of female athletes. Biological sex, determined at birth based on physical and chromosomal traits, has long been the basis for dividing athletic competition into male and female categories. This division exists not to exclude anyone, but to ensure a level playing field. Men on average have greater muscle mass, bone density, lung capacity, and testosterone levels than women, which contribute to superior performance in many sports. These advantages are not erased entirely through hormone therapy, and even the International Olympic Committee and various sports governing bodies continue to debate the extent to which hormonal regulation can or should level the playing field. Critics like Piers Morgan argue that by allowing biological males to compete in women's sports, we are not just risking unfair outcomes, we are actively reversing decades of progress made for women's rights in athletics. Female athletes have fought hard for equal recognition, funding, and opportunities. Introducing competitors with significant physical advantages into women's events risks pushing biological females out of the winner's circle, off the podium, and eventually out of the sport entirely. This is not simply a theoretical concern. Real-world examples have shown transgender athletes dominating events, setting records, and displacing female athletes from qualifying positions. These outcomes have led to understandable frustration and a growing call for policy revisions. Supporters of transgender inclusion often frame the issue as one of human rights, arguing that everyone deserves the opportunity to compete in alignment with their gender identity. They stress the emotional and psychological harm that exclusion can cause. While empathy and inclusion are important, the counterargument is that sport, by its nature, is based on objective measurements. You either jump higher, run faster, or lift more than your competitors. In this context, even small physical advantages can be the difference between gold and silver, between qualifying or going home. When those advantages are rooted in biological sex, the argument for separate male and female divisions remains compelling. Another issue is safety, particularly in contact sports like MMA, rugby, or wrestling. Biological males generally have denser bones and greater upper body strength, which could result in increased injury risk for female athletes when competing directly against transgender women. Ensuring athlete safety is a fundamental principle in sports governance, and ignoring these biological truths in the name of inclusion could put athletes at risk both physically and mentally. The broader societal implications are also worth noting. When biological reality is denied or dismissed in favor of ideology, it can erode public trust in institutions and systems, including those in sports. Rules that appear politically motivated or ideologically driven, rather than rooted in fairness and evidence, create backlash, division, and confusion. Piers Morgan has mourned that silencing legitimate concerns or labeling them as hateful stifles open debate and fuels resentment. A society that cannot openly discuss the balance between fairness and inclusion is one that risks losing sight of both. Ultimately, many argue that a solution lies not in forcing binary choices, but in creating new, innovative categories or competitions that recognize the diversity of gender identities while still respecting biological realities. Others call for stricter regulation based on biological factors rather than self-identification alone. What is clear is that this conversation is far from over, and its outcome will shape the future of competitive sports in profound ways. Respect for individuals and empathy for all participants must be balanced with a commitment to fairness, safety, and truth. Only through honest dialogue and evidence-based policy can this complex issue find a just resolution. The relationship between faith and science has often been portrayed as a battleground, a place where belief in a higher power and the empirical method of scientific inquiry cannot coexist. However, this narrative is not only simplistic but also misleading. Many of the world's most brilliant minds, past and present, have found harmony between the awe of scientific discovery and the reverence of spiritual belief. The idea that faith and scientific wonder can coexist is not only possible, but is, for many, a deeply enriching way to understand the universe and our place within it. Science aims to explain how the world works, its mechanisms and principles. It seeks evidence, tests hypotheses, and builds theories that can predict and explain natural phenomena. Faith, on the other hand, delves into questions of meaning, purpose, morality, and existence beyond the physical world. While their domains may differ, they are not necessarily in opposition. In fact, science often reveals the staggering complexity and beauty of the universe in a way that inspires awe, a feeling not unlike religious reverence. When we look at the structure of DNA, the fine-tuning of physical constants in the cosmos, or the sheer vastness of space, we are confronted with realities that are both humbling and magnificent. For many, these discoveries evoke questions that science cannot answer alone. Why is there something rather than nothing? Why do the laws of physics exist at all? Why is the universe intelligible to human beings? These are not merely scientific inquiries. They touch on metaphysical and theological terrain that invites contemplation of something greater than ourselves. Many prominent scientists have also been people of faith. Isaac Newton, one of the most influential scientists in history, spent more time about theology than he did about physics. Albert Einstein often spoke of a cosmic religious feeling, suggesting that his fascination with the universe's order and rationality hinted at something beyond random chance. More recently, Francis Collins, a geneticist who led the Human Genome Project, is an outspoken Christian who sees no contradiction between his faith and his scientific work. For Collins and many others, science is a means to explore God's creation, not to replace him. The conflict model, that science and faith are always at odds, gained momentum during particular historical moments, such as the Galileo affair or the Scopes trial. However, these episodes were more about politics and power than true intellectual incompatibility. In reality, many early scientific pioneers were deeply religious and viewed their work as uncovering the divine order of the universe. They believed that a rational creator had constructed a rational world, one that humans could understand through reason and observation. Critics of religion often argue that belief in God is merely a way to explain what we don't understand, God of the gaps, that gets smaller as science advances. But this is a mischaracterization of true faith. Mature religious belief does not depend on ignorance, but on a worldview that sees purpose and intention behind existence. Even as science closes gaps in our knowledge, it opens new frontiers of mystery. Discovering how something works does not negate the question of why it exists in the first place. For instance, understanding the chemical process behind love doesn't eliminate its emotional and existential significance. Faith also plays an important role in guiding the ethical use of scientific knowledge. Just because something can be done doesn't mean it should be done. Issues like genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and environmental stewardship require more than technical skill. They demand wisdom, compassion, and a sense of moral responsibility. Faith traditions offer frameworks for discussing these questions with depth and seriousness. Far from obstructing science, they provide the ethical compass needed to ensure that scientific progress serves humanity rather than harms it. Furthermore, faith can provide comfort and meaning in areas where science remains silent. In times of suffering, loss, or existential uncertainty, people often turn to their faith for strength and guidance. Science can explain the mechanisms of disease, but it cannot offer hope in the face of terminal illness. It can describe how a person dies, but not what comes after. These are the realms where faith steps in, offering narratives of hope, redemption, and purpose that go beyond the material. In schools and public discourse, it is essential to move beyond the false dichotomy that one must choose between believing in science or believing in God. Encouraging curiosity and critical thinking does not preclude spiritual reflection. Teaching children to marvel at the natural world through the lens of both scientific inquiry and philosophical or theological wonder fosters a more holistic understanding of life. Ultimately, the coexistence of faith and scientific wonder is not only possible, it is deeply human. We are beings who seek both knowledge and meaning, who are capable of rational analysis and spiritual longing. To deny the side of our nature is to live with an incomplete view of reality. When embraced together, science and faith can enrich one another, leading to a fuller, more profound appreciation of the universe and our role in it. This integrated perspective fosters humility, inspires innovation, and sustains the hope that we are part of something far greater than ourselves. Religion has long played a central role in shaping the moral foundations of societies around the world. From ancient civilizations to modern nations, religious beliefs and institutions have influenced laws, social norms, and individual behavior. Though the relevance and authority of religion are often debated in secular societies, today its historical and ongoing impact on moral frameworks cannot be denied. For many, religion is not merely a set of rituals or doctrines, it is a guide to ethical living, a moral compass rooted in transcendent truth and human accountability. At the core of most major religions is a vision of right and wrong, good and evil, duty and responsibility. These moral principles often derive from sacred texts, divine commandments, and the lives of spiritual leaders. The 10 Commandments in Judaism and Christianity, the 5 precepts in Buddhism, and the concept of Dharma in Hinduism are just a few examples of how religion offers structured guidance for ethical behavior. These teachings often promote universal values such as compassion, honesty, humility, self-discipline, and justice, values that form the bedrock of civil societies. One of the most powerful functions of religion is its ability to anchor morality in a sense of ultimate accountability. When individuals believe that their actions are observed by a higher power and that there are eternal consequences for wrongdoing, it creates a strong internal motivation to act ethically, even when no one is watching. This belief in divine justice can deter harmful behavior and promote a culture of integrity. While secular systems of law and ethics can serve a similar function, the added weight of spiritual accountability often reinforces the moral commitment on a deeper level. Religion also plays a critical role in fostering empathy and altruism. Most faith traditions emphasize the importance of caring for others, especially the poor, the sick, and the marginalized. Teachings like love thy neighbor as thyself in Christianity, compassion to all living beings in Buddhism, and charity as a pillar of faith in Islam encourage followers to look beyond their own interests and contribute to the well-being of others. These moral imperatives have inspired countless acts of kindness, as well as the founding of hospitals, schools, orphanages, and humanitarian organizations. Furthermore, religion has historically provided a sense of moral community. Worship gatherings, rituals, and religious festivals bring people together, creating shared experiences that reinforce ethical norms. These communities serve as support systems, holding individuals accountable to a higher moral standard and offering encouragement in times of struggle. Religious communities often become centers of moral teaching and dialogue, where values are passed down from one generation to the next, ensuring continuity and moral clarity in the midst of social change. Religion also has the capacity to challenge injustice and inspire moral courage. Many of history's greatest movements for social change were led by religious figures or grounded in religious conviction. The abolition of slavery, the civil rights movement, and campaigns for peace and human rights have often drawn strength from religious teachings about the dignity and equality of all people. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Mahatma Gandhi, and Desmond Tutu used their faith as a source of moral authority to confront oppression and advocate for a more just world. Their example shows that religion can be a powerful force for moral progress, not merely a conservative or static tradition. Critics often argue that religion can also be a source of division, intolerance, or moral rigidity. Indeed, history contains examples of religious violence, discrimination, and moral dogmatism. But these outcomes typically arise not from the essence of religious morality itself, but from its misinterpretation, manipulation, or politicization. Like any powerful force, religion can be used for good or ill, depending on the intentions of its followers. When grounded in authentic teachings and guided by humility and love, religion remains one of the most potent sources of moral inspiration available to humanity. In modern secular societies, there is a growing emphasis on deriving morality from reason, human rights, and shared values. While these approaches have merit, they often lack the emotional and existential depth that religion provides. Religious stories, symbols, and rituals engage people on a deeper level, embedding moral lessons in the heart as well as the mind. Moreover, religion offers a narrative context for morality. It doesn't just tell people what to do, but why life has meaning, why others matter, and why our choices transcend mere utility. The decline of religious practice in many parts of the world raises questions about what will replace it as a source of moral authority. Some worry that without a transcendent framework, morality becomes subjective, relative, or vulnerable to the changing winds of culture. While secular philosophies can offer ethical guidance, they often struggle to inspire the same level of commitment and community as religious traditions. Religion provides a coherent system that integrates belief, behavior, and belonging, making it a uniquely powerful foundation for moral life. In conclusion, religion continues to play a crucial role in shaping and sustaining moral foundations. It offers clear principles, instills accountability, encourages compassion, builds community, and inspires action against injustice. While not without flaws or challenges, religious morality has served humanity for millennia as a compass pointing toward the good. Even in a world of rapid change and growing secularism, the timeless moral insights of religion remain deeply relevant to the human quest for meaning, justice, and a better world. The debate between freedom of speech and what is often labeled as woke censorship has become one of the defining cultural conflicts of the modern era. On one side stands the principle of free expression, a cornerstone of democratic societies that protects the right to speak, question, criticize, and dissent. On the other side is a growing movement, often associated with progressive or woke activism, that seeks to limit speech deemed offensive, harmful, or inconsistent with evolving social norms. While the intention behind limiting certain kinds of speech may stem from a desire to protect marginalized groups and promote social justice, the consequences often raise serious concerns about intellectual freedom, open dialogue, and the health of democratic discourse. Freedom of speech is not just a legal right, it is a cultural value that underpins the pursuit of truth and the exchange of ideas. It allows individuals to express unpopular or controversial opinions without fear of punishment or social exile. Historically, this freedom has been essential for challenging established power structures, advancing civil rights, and pushing scientific and philosophical boundaries. From Martin Luther King Jr. to Galileo, from dissidents under authoritarian regimes to whistleblowers exposing corruption, free speech has been a vital instrument of change and accountability. In contrast, the rise of woke censorship, or what some describe as cancel culture, reflects a shift in how society deals with controversial speech. Rather than responding with counter-arguments or debate, this culture often seeks to silence, deplatform, or punish those who express views outside the accepted progressive orthodoxy. While some corrections of speech are legitimate, especially when addressing hate speech, incitement to violence, or outright misinformation, the broadening scope of what is considered harmful or offensive is leading to a climate of fear and self-censorship. This shift can be seen in various spheres, from academia and media to corporate environments and online platforms. Professors have been fired or disciplined for expressing unpopular opinions. Comedians have been criticized for jokes that fail to align with evolving standards of political correctness. Authors and artists face calls for boycotts based on decades-old statements or perceived cultural insensitivities. Even private individuals can face public shaming, job loss, or social ostracism for a tweet or comment taken out of context. The boundaries of acceptable speech seem to be narrowing, and the consequences for crossing them are growing more severe. One of the key problems with this trend is the subjective and often inconsistent nature of what is deemed offensive or inappropriate. What one person considers hateful or harmful, another may view as legitimate criticism or an important question. When society begins to police language based on personal feelings rather than objective standards, it becomes nearly impossible to maintain a clear and consistent boundary for acceptable speech. This creates a chilling effect where individuals, fearing backlash, avoid engaging in honest dialogue or challenging dominant narratives. In such a climate, the pursuit of truth and intellectual rigor suffers. Another issue is the power imbalance embedded within censorship. While the intention behind silencing harmful speech may be to protect the vulnerable, the actual mechanisms of censorship often lie in the hands of powerful institutions. Social media giants, university administrators, media outlets, and corporate HR departments. These entities become the arbiters of truth, deciding what can and cannot be said, often without transparency or accountability. This raises serious questions about who gets to define morality and truth, and whether their decisions reflect genuine justice or ideological conformity. It is also important to recognize that the erosion of free speech doesn't just affect those with controversial opinions. It affects everyone. A society that cannot tolerate disagreement or dissent becomes intellectually stagnant and socially brittle. Democracy thrives on disagreement, on the open clash of ideas from which better understanding and compromise can emerge. If people are afraid to speak their minds or question dominant narratives, innovation suffers and genuine social progress is stifled. In this sense, the protection of free speech is not only about individual liberty, it's about the health of the entire society. Moreover, the term woke itself has become polarizing and often misused. Originally associated with awareness of social injustice, particularly racial inequality, it has evolved into a shorthand for an ideological mindset that prioritizes feelings over facts, identity over universality, and conformity over debate. While the original goals of inclusion and equity are commendable, the methods by which some of these goals are now pursued, through speech control and cultural intimidation, can undermine the very principles they aim to uphold. Ultimately, the challenge is not to choose between speech and sensitivity, but to find a balance where respect and freedom coexist. People should be free to express themselves, even if their views are controversial or unpopular. At the same time, society should promote empathy, civil dialogue, and mutual respect. The solution is not to silence those we disagree with, but to engage them, question them, and, when necessary, refute them with reason, not force. The defense of free speech must be consistent and principled. It cannot be reserved only for ideas we like or people we agree with. If we accept censorship today for someone else's views, we may find ourselves silenced tomorrow. Protecting speech means allowing the messy, sometimes uncomfortable, but ultimately vital exchange of ideas that drives human progress. In a truly free society, ideas should rise or fall on their own merit, not because someone in power decided they were too dangerous to be heard.